Good evening. Today is Wednesday, June 16th, and this is the District of Seashell regular council meeting for June 16th. Wow, we're almost getting close to halfway through the year already. Doesn't seem possible. I'd like to call us to order and ask, are there any conflicts in the agenda this evening?
Yes, I will recuse myself from 10.4 based on my relationship with Vancouver Coastal Health.
Thank you. Any others? All right, so I'd like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from the unceded traditional territory of the Seashell Nation. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Not seeing any, I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And we have appointments and delegations. Councillor McLean, is it just slow putting your hand up there?
Yep, nothing for me.
Okay. Appointments and delegations. Our first delegation is 3.1. It is the Sunshine Coast Seniors Planning Table, and we have 3 representatives here. Michelle, did you want to introduce your team?
I think I'll let my team introduce themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will start. I'm Heidi
you.
Magnuson Ford. I'm the co-chair for the Seniors Planning Table, and I would like to say thank you very much for having us here. And good evening to you, Mayor Seegers, and to all of you on council and others. I've been home on the coast here for 6 years, and within the last year joined the resource center on the board and became co-chair of the Seniors Planning Table. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I think there's so much potential on the coast for vibrant, continuing vibrant seniors services and living. And I look forward to continuing to work with Michelle and the rest of the Seniors Planning Table to develop the comprehensive and collaborative movement on the coast for a happy place and a healthy place for all seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Sue Elliott. I'm also on the Resource Center board, and I co-chair with Heidi. And it has been a very enriching year. We are nearing the end of a review and evaluation of the Seniors Planning Table, and I'd like to augment what Heidi has said and thank everybody for allowing us to come and join you, because one of the things that has been really obvious during our evaluation conversations are for local politicians, for our provincial and our federal politicians. The Seniors Planning Table allows them to feel the pulse of what issues are happening for seniors on the coast, and it allows them to make connections with people who are connecting and supporting with seniors on the coast. And one of the things we have learned that is really valuable, and we thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity, because I think what has evolved is a model almost we're like an arm of your council in a social planning sense for seniors. So thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to Michelle, our program manager, sharing with you really what we're all about.
Thank you.
Well said, Sue and Heidi, thank you very much. And with that, I would like to share my screen, and I think I'm able to do that. So let's just start, and I think you can all see that. So here we go.
I would like to talk to you about the awesome work the Sunshine Coast Seniors Planning Table has been doing in the community these past years with the help of funding from the District of Seashell. You can see an example of our work in action on this slide. It shows the delegation of the Seniors Planning Table meeting with the Federal Minister for Seniors, Ptsd, in 2019. We have since also met with the current minister, Deb Schultz. If you look closely, you can make out a few familiar faces there. I can see Mayor Seegers in the back, beside Pat Hunt and other table members who are all passionate about working collaboratively as seniors, service providers, community organizations, and local governments to ensure that supports and programs are available for all older adults living on the Sunshine Coast to be healthy, valued, and involved members of the community. The Seniors Planning Table is hosted by the Sunshine Coast Resource Center, which is a and referral hub and offers a variety of important community programs. The Seniors Planning Table is guided by a steering committee that is currently composed of 7 volunteer members and a part-time coordinator. The table's members are recruited from over 40 senior serving organizations and all local governments on the Sunshine Coast. They are currently represented by over 100 individuals. Before the planning table was created about 5 years ago, most local organizations and agencies who are serving older adults in some form were operating in silos with almost no interconnection. And in the years since, we have been able to streamline service provision, find and fill gaps, and through collaboration, facilitate referrals, as well as improve much needed navigation for older adults in the community. We have been able to facilitate granting partnerships between member organizations, as well as to coordinate and expand service provision during the pandemic. We work to create and support an age-friendly community by following evidence-based principles for social change to create and support an age-friendly community. We are community-centered, we welcome diversity, we continually seek new stakeholders and audiences, we work across sectors, we are open to taking risks, we embrace change, and we also embrace new technologies. What that looks like on the ground is that we meet as a whole table 3 to 4 times a year while rotating the location through the communities on the coast. That is, pre-COVID, we did that. Now all meetings are being held online for the time being. Each meeting usually has a focus on an issue that the steering committee has identified or that the group has brought forward either through individuals or in a meeting. In one of the meetings held in Pendo Harbor, we introduced the health center and their seniors outreach programs. We heard from paramedics and other first responders in that area. In Gibson's, we talked about housing with the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society. We heard from the author of the Hidden Homelessness Report and of the Resilient Neighborhoods Project. During another meeting, we presented and discussed the findings of our report on isolation in Canadian older adults and heard a presentation on dementia care. Our work covers a wide range of areas. So for example, we are available for consultation with senior service organizations, businesses and government, and as such have worked with Vancouver Coastal Health, the divisions of family practice, BC Transit, hospice, the district of Seashell, to name just a few. Over the years, we have sponsored meetings with the BC Seniors Advocate, with our MPs and MLAs. We have hosted meetings with the Health Authority regarding the Silverstone facility and the repurposing of Shorncliffe. We have written letters to appropriate parties regarding issues that affect seniors. We sponsored a one-day seniors conference in March 2017 that was attended by close to 200 seniors. We met with a donor in the community to establish a caregiver support program. We followed up on outstanding recommendations from the District of Seashell's age-friendly report that we had completed in 2017. And we have undertaken a literature review of existing information on the physical and psychological health risks of isolation and have created a report. One of the various ways we have addressed emerging and long-standing issues that present barriers to the well-being of seniors is by creating issue-specific local working groups, but also by joining provincial working groups such as those on transportation and that on seniors action committees. These groups were created by the Leadership Council of British Columbia with funding from the Ministry of Health. Our local working groups have had some concrete outcomes. The technology group, for example, created a partnership to support older adults' access to the digital realm. We advertised these services on posters and handouts in the vaccination centers at the time when seniors were getting their first shots. The transportation working groups also had an amazing result in that they inspired the creation of a new nonprofit called Getting There, a partnership between Coastal Rise and Care for a Lift. This past spring, they have submitted an application to the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative for $110,000 to be able to purchase and operate a sustainable fleet of accessible vehicles. In the meantime, they have been offering rides to vaccination centers at cost and are launching a fundraising campaign. So be on the lookout for that. Also this past spring, Rob Ringma, who is the Senior Manager for Government Relations at BC Transit, made a presentation to the Transportation Working Group and other stakeholders on custom transit. This was in preparation for the upcoming public consultation on improving handy-dart services on the Sunshine Coast. We are also working with the BC Rural Healthcare Network Special Committee on access to healthcare through transportation and other means. Another larger piece of work we have undertaken is, as mentioned before, a literature review of isolation in older Canadian adults. We have since offered several webinars on the findings and on the promising approaches and interventions in partnership with United Way and with the Community Response Network. At the beginning of 2020, when isolation suddenly became a common experience for many, we took the opportunity to redouble our efforts in finding solutions in a world that had radically changed overnight. We approached this by doing what we have learned to do very well over the years, working collectively to find areas of overlap and potential gaps in services and problem solve around these. The pandemic experience of our member organizations now forms the addendum to the isolation report, which was again widely distributed to all local governments, the Minister of Seniors, the Office of the Seniors Advocate, the Minister of Health, the Public Health Officer, and so on. This year, we have embarked on a new adventure by enrolling 2 steering committee members and myself in an evaluation training that will result in an assessment of the Seniors Planning Table's impact on its member organizations. The training is called Project Impact Healthy Aging and is British Columbia's first developmental evaluation course tailored to the needs of its expanding community-based senior service sector. The course shines an appreciative light on the programs, the people who offer them, and the very important work they do. We recently presented some preliminary findings on the qualitative aspect of the project in a showcase. The presentation has been recorded and is available online, and the final report will be published later this summer. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
Yes, I just want to thank the entire Seniors Planning Table for all the work that they've been doing. It's really nice to see people coming together and critically think about the services they provide and how they can work together. So to that end, I appreciate that you're going through a program evaluation and doing that training. Just to clarify, was that training specifically for the planning table review, or are you looking at offering evaluation to other senior programming on the Sunshine Coast?
Sue, did you want to answer that, or should I? Oh, Sue, you're on mute.
Yeah, I am. We under Michelle's guidance, we found out we could do that. So we're doing it specifically for the Seniors Planning Table. And I think if other groups wanted to do it, they could probably join in with the next cohort that goes through. I don't know if that's answering your question, Matt.
Yes and no.
Yeah, okay. Well, Matt, I can add to that it's a training combined with actually doing the work. So we are being trained to do this kind of evaluation. So in principle, we could do it for other programs as well. And I think the idea was that we would apply it to other programs in the future.
Okay, perfect. That was the question. So thank you. Thank you, Michelle. I'd love to see it expand to other groups because evaluation is very critical. And there's a lot of programs that I think we can do a better job at evaluating.
And it's time consuming. It's 3.5 hours a month. And then you work in between, and it's, but it's very, very valuable. So I really recommend it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to say that I've really enjoyed being part of the seniors planning table. As my daughter said, I am a senior. Not quite there, but getting close. She says, Mom, you're old. So I really appreciate the energy, the commitment, and the focus that you put on this, in the community. And I think what you've done over the 5 years is really raise the profile of seniors in the community and what they have to offer and what they do step up and offer. So we're very blessed to have such an active, engaged senior population on the Sunshine Coast and particularly in Seashell. So thank you for doing that work. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor
you.
and Council, for making it possible.
Our pleasure. Thank you for being here. All right, we're going to move on to our next delegation. This is Sunshine Coast Tourism, and we have 2 members here. We have Paul Kamen and Johan Strom. So over to you, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. I'm getting blasted by this terrible sunshine, so bear with me. Let me just pull up my notes here. I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of the Tla'amin peoples here in the Cathet region on the northern Sunshine Coast. I'm coming to you to present to you a Sustainable Sunshine Coast initiative, which is part of the Tourism Growth Management Committee, which is working on projects out of the 10-year Destination Development Plan. I'm joined here by my colleague Johan from Heartwood Solutions, who will be doing the presentation. So take it away, Johan.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you, Mayor Seeger and council and staff and those members of the public that are here listening in. So, and thank you for the introduction, Paul. So my name is Johan Stroman, and I'm an independent consultant working on the Sunshine Coast and also off coast. So I'm very pleased to be involved with the project, supporting Paul and other staff at Sunshine Coast Tourism. So the essence of the project is managing tourism growth on the entire Sunshine Coast, and it is to manage the destination collaboratively with other community partners, including local government. And it's really everyone's role to ensure that tourism is developed and managed carefully in a sustainable way that meets the vision for the destination, the capacity that can be supported by residents and the visitor infrastructure. So protecting the natural and cultural resources that attract visitors to our region is a critical part of this. And as a pilot project, this work is being conducted in a way to ensure that any key learnings can be documented and shared with other planning areas and teams. So one of the things from that survey was to keep the reality of our infrastructure in mind, finding out what our real limits are as we grow and be able to manage at the top level of our capacity. So as a pilot project, and we're just reading here from the Sunshine Coast Destination Development Vision Story, is we value our wildlife, lush rainforest, and wild natural places that nourish us. We promote stewardship, conservation through education, guides, tours, and sustainable operations. And the development of the Sunshine Coast as a destination community includes all of the Sunshine Coast. So it's North and South Sunshine Coast from Lund to Langdale. And some of you may already be aware that in the past few years, tourism globally is seeing a rise in sustainable destination development. And there's a growing interest by visitors globally, as well as regionally, for strong sustainability practices. And we see this in BC, in Canada, and internationally, with a rise in standardized certification programs that are tied to the Paris Climate Accord and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Sunshine Coast Initiative's objectives are to raise sustainability awareness, increase uptake of actions, and build interest and conversations on sustainability moving forward. And through the hard work of Paul and the other members of the Sunshine Coast Tourism team, and also members of Destination BC, we're applying an approach that's very positive. It's collaborative and solutions oriented. And the focus for this summer is on water conservation and alternative transportation modes in partnership with other local agencies. And we will add or pivot towards energy conservation as well this coming fall. And as you're hearing this, I'm sure you're aware that we're not short of local leaders. There's a number of accommodations, restaurants, and other tourism operators that are really already spearheading the approaches that we're sharing here. And we'll just share a couple of them quickly. Point House Suites on Sargent Bay is a great example. They have a Green Tourism Gold certification nationally. And just some examples of things that they've implemented to fit this profile is a livable design and water management strategy. They have energy efficiency, including level 2 electric vehicle charging point. They've been very focused on using sustainable materials and practices, and healthy home food and amenities, as well as a responsible visitors charter. So you can see here some photos from the Point House Suites in Sargent Bay. Up the Creek Backpackers Lodge, which many of you probably know in Roberts Creek, has been doing amazing work for a couple of decades now, featuring water conservation signage prompts in bathrooms and in the shared kitchen, and a very robust, well-developed recycling and energy management program. And for alternative transportation, a great job of providing options for bicycles, both for parking, cleaning, and storage. So very attractive to cycle tourism on the Sunshine Coast. So the project goals is to approach this with a very collaborative spirit, as we mentioned, and that really starts with the inception. Some of the materials that we've used here were the result of some hard work by Sunshine Coast Regional District's Jennifer Callahan and Mia Edbrook, and this goes back a couple of years. So we've adapted and built on that work for the water conservation elements, and it's really focused. This initiative is focused on both handling sustainability, but ultimately it's to get for the long-term goal that businesses will be saving on operating costs with the kinds of steps that we're aiming to support them with, while at the same time addressing climate change and growing water scarcity, which is becoming a reality both on the Sunshine Coast in BC and elsewhere, as well as supporting low-impact tourism and enabling collaborative and supportive practices to grow local business opportunities. Our action plan for the summer is a focus on a water conservation pledge that's aimed at local restaurants, accommodations, including hotels, inns, and B&Bs. And it's also to provide some specific water conservation tips and individual support for implementation with those businesses. We're also promoting alternative modes of transportation on the coast, and we will feature tips to operators on the coast to support cycling tourism. And we're really pleased to have been working closely with volunteer community members from the organization TRAC, Transportation Alternative Solutions on the Sunshine Coast. And they've provided some great resource materials that we're able to share out. Given that we live along a 200-kilometer coastline, transportation is obviously something that's going to continue being challenging, and COVID-19 has really provided some opportunities for local government and businesses to start rethinking how we move ourselves and what our real needs around transportation are in the near future. Certainly highlighted by the presentation that preceded ours from the Senior Center. We aim to profile practices and businesses using social media and local newspapers. So we expect to see an article profiling the project in local papers next week. And we're also working on the launch of a webpage, which is imminent in the next week, 10 days. It will start, as you can see by this, this draft layout, wireframe as it were, branding, links to the other partners and supporters, including local government. We certainly expect and hope that District of Seashell will put their support behind this initiative as well. And it will feature background content, links to core action areas, water and transportation, and additional information for visitors and operators, and links to all supportive of local government and agencies, as well as business development and financial development groups. So for instance, Greedo and TRAC, you'll see linked here as well. We've had a very positive response so far with our initial communications, including some district Seashell staff and with other local governments. And just to give you a sense, this is our now copy-ready materials, which will be available in print form next week for local tourism operators. And they're from the website. There'll be a simple way for both businesses on the coast as well as visitors and locals to take the water conservation pledge. And there'll be available links to printable information with tips, guides, and support for owners, restaurants, and accommodation staff to use. And in addition to that, we will have some specific water conservation tips. And these again are samples from the materials and resources that we're making available. And just highlighting the most affordable actions for operators. We understand this has been an exceptionally challenging 16 months with the pandemic for many businesses on the coast. So we're really highlighting the most affordable actions here for operators, but also profiling the kinds of things that they can begin thinking about for perhaps coming years to start to implement and add where the costs may be higher. So we will be providing stickers free of cost to feature for operators at their entrances, and web badges as well for proprietor websites, so that businesses and visitors can share these actions both online as well as through social media. And similarly for accommodations, we have attractive, heavier stock printed paper available with cards that are a good size for either placing on the refrigerator or in units, obviously, that have those, or in a central area to draw attention to some of these tips for visitors to the coast. And we certainly encourage locals who are hosting off-coast families or friends, and we expect with the direction that the COVID-19 Health Authority recommendations are that that there will be more visitors this summer, hopefully, if things point in the correct direction. And here's a sample of the work from TRAC with support from our graphic design staff. TRAC on the Coast has provided excellent support to the initiative and provided a list of tips to proprietors to help attract and support visitors by bikes, and that's only increasing. You'll notice on the bottom right corner here is a sample of a sign. These will be available to the first 50 local B&Bs, accommodations, or restaurants that are seeking to designate an outside charging location for just a regular outdoor plug, really, to enable those people coming to the Sunshine Coast, whether they be visitors or locals, with e-bikes, so that they can find a quick and convenient stop to put a little more charge on their batteries before they make their way to their next stop. So we come now to the part of why we're presenting to the District of Seashell. We're certainly providing information. We've initiated some conversations with staff at the district, and I know that some of the elected councillors and mayor are aware of some of the work that's been done so far. Our hope is that in partnering with the District of Seashell, that the district can help amplify the messaging with community members and businesses in Seashell, and to integrate the work that the Sunshine Coast Tourism is doing on Sustainable Sunshine Coast with other related efforts in reaching out to visitors, as well as managing water and transportation. And as possible, we'd certainly ask for support in kind for printing to further the reach into the community, ensure that people are aware and that they can get access to these supporting documents and tips in more accessible ways. And we certainly encourage anything that the district can do to incentivize businesses to upgrade infrastructure, both around water conservation, as well as alternative transportation options. And that might include coordinating bike parking or e-bike charging in community hubs, which we only see as rising expectation that will happen more and more on the Sunshine Coast. I'd like to take this time to thank everyone for their attention and for providing this opportunity to present. So thank you very much. And Paul and myself would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So Johan, can you, yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Council, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, good stuff. I really like the focus on water. We obviously, I think it was last week that we saw a TRAC come by and present their kind of side of it. So they had some good stuff, and I really like your focus on the alternative transportation water. Because if we look at the two biggest physical constraints on the coast, it's our water supply and it's the ferry. So alternative transportation kind of addresses that ferry concern. Just on the water side, I know you mentioned you were talking to Mia and Jen at the SCRD, but I know last year and previous years, I think the SCRD has purchased ads on the ferry about water conservation. And I really like the graphic design work that you've kind of done in this. So I just want to flag that, maybe to chat with those two and see if you can tag together on some fairy advertising.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Council? I think Councillor Toth and I saw, we've seen this presentation. Well, I've seen the presentation a few times right now. So I want to say that I went to the Downtown Business Association meeting this morning, and they were really interested in the information from TRAC as well. So that tip sheet that you provided, or we were provided last week, I forwarded on. So that will probably be distributed through the Downtown Business Association membership. The others, now that you're talking about the sustainability, the water and the alternative transportation, how do our restaurants become members? Do they have to reach out to you, or do you reach out to them? Because I know there's no charge for membership now anymore. So how is that working?
We reach out to them through our membership newsletter and in our email list. And of course, we're open to having the conversation with any business that wants to talk with us. So we do have a specific email to gather those connections.
Okay.
But this is completely inclusive initiative. I think the more people that get involved, the better.
Absolutely, and thank you, Paul. And I can add to, there will be, I guess it's a two-way street. They can certainly contact us via Sunshine Coast Tourism. There will be social media profiling on the specific initiative elements to drive some traffic for public and visitors to what's happening. And via mail lists, we'll certainly be reaching out to businesses to let them know. Paul pointed out the dedicated email for this. So they'll any operators on the Sunshine Coast that would like print materials can reach us in the coming days via that email. So that will be going out very shortly in the coming days. And we have some in-kind support already from the SCRD in the form of printing. So they've already been kind to support us with printing materials that are just ready now. So we expect that we'll be able to start distributing and make those available via the visitor centers from Powell River all the way down to Gibson's, and obviously Seashell as well. So if people are wondering where they can get that, by next week they'll be available for pickup there.
All right. Councillor Toth, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
We just want to add both our visitor centers in Gibson's and Seashell opened officially today. So we're back in business.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, you would know that, right? Yeah. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in to emphasize that the work around the water conservation, I think, is going to be of sort of paramount importance as while we bridge the period of time while we wait for our water licensing and our construction to go forward on Church Road, and then other projects, of course, down the road. So I just wanted to say thank you for the work you're doing, and look forward to seeing more.
Okay, I will reach out to the Downtown Business Association as well and have their executive director send the information out, because we have some new restaurants, for example, that may not be aware of what you do, and the support that you're available to give to them. So we'll make sure that information gets disseminated as well. And then with regards to your asks, how would you like to deal with this, Council? You're looking for support. Do you want to just read that out again, what it is you're looking for from us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So I think opportunities with communication staff to help amplify the message. So if there's whether it's certainly off your website, one of the things all of the regional partners are being asked, both local government and key agencies. So for instance, the rideshare on the Sunshine Coast, Coast Car Co-op, any of certainly transit, which is being managed by the SCRD, and so those links will be provided. So if you're able to provide a link to the web URL, which will also be available very soon with the launch, we can certainly connect that with communication staff, which would be great. And if there's an opportunity to with any mail outs that you're doing into the community, it would be great to be able to include something like that. And if it's possible for the District of Seashell to support in kind of the printing costs of something that would go out to the community, that would be a great way to drive more awareness on this. And then people can get to the website and also see what the partners are providing. So I think really at this point, those are the main things that we're asking directly. And then I think the two areas that are perhaps directed maybe more to staff right now is what work might already be happening or planned with your strategic plans around incentivizing businesses to upgrade infrastructure, either in water. So for instance, I know years ago, local government on the Sunshine Coast provided rebates for low volume flush toilets, those kinds of things. So, or other incentives for, you know, businesses on that, and or bicycle parking would be great. So we'd be, certainly Paul and myself would be happy to interact with staff if they want to do so.
Okay, so it sounds like we should refer this to staff. And I mean, I notice our communications manager is in the meeting here as well, behind the scenes. So if we refer this to staff, then you'll be able to make those connections and move those things forward.
Thank you.
All right. Would someone like to make a recommendation that this report go to staff for follow-up?
Moved.
And seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, you bet. Bye-bye. All right, before we go into our proclamation, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. In the month of June, we commemorate National Indigenous History Month, and that is to recognize the history, heritage, and diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in Canada. And June 21st is National Indigenous Peoples Day. So we don't have a formal proclamation, but I know that there are a number of resources available to us. The University of Alberta, for example, has a free course that you can take to further your information and knowledge about our First Nations. So we'll move on to item 4.1. This is a proclamation, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, PTSD Awareness Month, June 2021. So whereas June has been declared as PTSD Awareness Month each year around the world, and whereas for centuries we have recognized PTSD, and whereas PTSD can affect all ages, children through to seniors, and whereas treatment for PTSD is available and it is up to each of us to know that the PTSD assessment form written by the Center for PTSD Research is a major tool to seek medical assistance. And whereas PTSD Awareness Month urges all to seek help for those who may have PTSD requiring medical assistance. Now, therefore, I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Seashell Council, do hereby proclaim that the month of June 2021 shall be known as Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month in the District of Seashell. Right, moving on. Item 5.1, minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021, and this is for adoption. First, are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, I'd look for someone to move adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Then the minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, June 9th. I'd look for someone to move adoption of this one. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Right, moving on. Item 7.1. Sorry, first of all, business arising from the minutes. Any business arising from those? Councillor McLean.
Did we miss one there? I have 3 sets of minutes.
The next one is the committee of the whole.
Oh, okay.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and yeah, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. Yeah, thank you. Any business arising from the minutes from the council meetings? Right, seeing none, let's move on to the receipt and endorsement of the Committee of the Whole minutes of June 9th. First, any errors or omissions in here? Councillor McLean. No errors or omissions. You'd like to move receipt and endorsement? Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Then we're going to move on to item 8.1A. This is Public Works Parks Building Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 597, 2021. And I'd look for a motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Ms. Smith, over to you.
Thank you. All right. So I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to read the bylaw. So the purpose of this report is for council to consider giving 3 readings for the District of Seashell's bylaw number 597, 2021, Public Works Parks Operation Building Temporary Borrowing for the construction of the Public Works Parks Operations Center. At its August 5th, 2020 regular meeting, council passed the following resolution: that staff be authorized to undertake an alternative approval process in accordance to the community charter to facilitate borrowing of up to $3 million to be repaid over 20 years to finance the cost of construction. At the time, the required loan authorization bylaw 594, 2020, with a 20-year borrowing period, was presented to council consideration for first, second, third readings on September 2nd, 2020, with the adoption March 17th, 2021. I have attached the bylaw to this report just for reference. And tonight I bring forward bylaw number 597, 2021, Public Works Parks Operation Building for temporary borrowing during the construction period. The amount not to exceed $3 million as set out in the previous bylaw 594, 2020. Money borrowed under these terms is required to be transferred to long-term debt within 5 years of the first advance. This request follows Community Charter Section 181 that allows municipalities to adopt a temporary borrowing bylaw against an already adopted bylaw, which is bylaw number 594, which I've referenced and attached. No other assents other than council adoption is required for this temporary borrowing bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically what you're saying is we have community consent to borrow $3 million. And what we're looking at is sort of like a line of credit until we've actually borrowed the final amount, so that we don't borrow the money and pay interest on all of it during the building period. We only do the final borrowing at the end of the amount we need. This allows us to, okay. Any questions by council? All right, seeing no questions, there is a recommendation on page 23. Would someone like to make that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Toth. Would you like me to read that? That the Public Works Parks Building Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 597, 2021 be read a first, second, and third time. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. So moving on to the actual bylaw. This is 8.1B, page 25. District of Seashell Public Works Parks Operations Center Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 597, 2021, a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing for construction of a public works parks building. And look for someone to move first reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. District of Seashell Public Works Parks Operations Center Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 597, 2021, a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing for construction of a public works parks building. And I look for someone to move second reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Then District of Seashell Public Works Parks Operations Center Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 597, 2021, a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing for construction of a public works parks building. And someone to move third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Smith. There is no new business. We will move on to item 10.1. This is request for decision for a public event rate for Seaside Center. A motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you. Ms. Rogers, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We changed the rates for all of our facilities after more than a decade of keeping the rates the same last year. And when we raised the rates at Seaside to bring them more in line with other rates on the coast, we did it with a mind to, if you're renting it for a private event, you should pay the going rate as opposed to a nonprofit. What we didn't consider at that time is that some of our for-profit events are actually a great benefit to our community, and they're very small profit events. When you have a market with 10 vendors and each of the vendors only hopes to make a couple $100, a $60 fee for them for their table is really exorbitant. So what we're proposing is that we have a rate through the winter months when the facility is not booked as much, and when we want to have more public community style events, that we have a special rate to allow those events to continue to take place in Seaside, so that the public still benefits. It aligns with Sunshine Coast Tourism's goals of having more events in the off season to bring more people to the coast in the off season when we have those events. And we've got, right now we have 4 public events that have always been in Seaside, and all 4 are looking at moving. One of them has definitely made the decision they're leaving. The other 3 are not sure if they're going to cancel or seek another venue. All 4, oddly, have said, you know, Seaside has never been a perfect space for them. It's nice because it's beside the highway and people can find it, but it doesn't have an elevator, so it has a lot of upstairs space that is not usable for them. It's a bit dark. The lighting in there is not very good. The sound system is not very good, and the parking is not very good. And then when we doubled the rates for them, almost doubled, it was the last straw, and so they're finding it difficult to continue. So if we would like to continue to have those events, we're proposing a special rate just for those fall and winter months for public events only. So we will still charge the full rate if it's a private Christmas party or a wedding or something like that. We will still charge the regular private rate. But if it's going to be a public event, even if it's a for-profit, we're suggesting a slightly lower rate for them.
Thank you. Council, questions, comments? No questions or comments? Would someone like to move something or put forward? There is a suggested recommendation, and what would you like to do, Councillor McLean?
Yeah, this looks good to me, so I'll move recommendation 2 that council authorize changing the fees and charges bylaw number 575/2020 to allow for a public event rate for Seaside Center from October 1st to March 31st every year.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Then item 10.2, RFP for Hackett Park Stage. Motion to receive the report. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening, I have a report in front of you seeking Council's direction on how to move forward with our Hackett Park Accessible Stage project. In April, staff issued a request for proposals. However, we only received one proposal. And although that one proposal does meet almost all the essential requirements that were laid out in the RFP, it did come in over the established budget. The proponent did make efforts to find cost savings by altering the design somewhat and even seeking out a donation towards material costs. And even with that, it wasn't possible to bring it in within our budget. And as noted in the report, it's worth noting that this budget was established back in the beginning of 2019. And since that time, significant impact from COVID has caused prices for construction to go up considerably. And it's a challenge for anyone bidding on a project such as this to keep it within a budget that was appropriate a few years ago, and unfortunately not quite big enough anymore, it seems. So staff are recommending that we put some additional funds towards this project so that we can proceed and award a contract to the one proponent that we did receive. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the report.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. My apologies, I didn't have an opportunity to look up the grant, but what, how long are the funds good for? Like, when do we have to have this project finished by?
I believe 2024. 2025, March 31st of 2025.
Okay, so we have a fair bit of time here. My own thoughts and comments on this is that, we know that we're at, steel, lumber, all of this, we're at the height of those costs. Lumber is starting to finally come down. So it looks like we're on the backside of that curve. A fellow I was talking to at a lumberyard said that they expect costs to sort of normalize by the end of this year. So given that we do have a fair amount of time on this, I'm wondering if we should put this aside for the time being, wait and see what those material costs are going to do, and then retender this project later this year.
Well, that certainly is a possibility, and it is one of the options given in this report. Staff would like to see the project proceed as soon as possible so that we can provide the public with access to that area of Hackett Park once again. We would like to take advantage of the opportunity now while we're still not able to do really large events there to get the work done, so that next year when we do have fewer restrictions on gatherings, it's ready to go and ready to be used by the public.
Thank you. Council, any other comments or questions? Councillor McLean.
So just firstly, I'll agree with Councillor Toth. I had very similar comments. Now is probably not the time to be building a big wood structure, especially if we have time within the grant. But just to Ms. Smith, you made a comment about large public events. The two biggest events that use Hackett Park are the Arts and Crafts Fair and Canada Day. I believe I saw an email today about the Canada Day, and they want to have a farmers market at Hackett Park. Do you happen to know if that's using the lower field, or maybe Councillor Toth knows that?
I can answer that. So both the Hackett Park Craft Fair and Canada Day are taking place this year. The farmers market that's taking place on July 1st will have to be located in the upper field, as will the Hackett Park Craft Fair. So it is not the preferred location for either of those events, but it is the only location we're able to provide them access to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kuster.
Just a couple questions. Did the proponent who bid this give you any clue to how long this project would take? And was it a local person who did the bidding as well?
Can I defer to Director Douglas? Is he, or perhaps our manager of finance, Beverly Smith? I'm not sure if either of them are able to advise on what I can or cannot disclose.
The name of the company is actually in the report.
The name of the company is in the report, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to provide any additional details about what the timeline was. That was.
Yeah, the timeline was what, 80 days or something, or?
I was holding the bid. I don't think that was the timeline for the construction.
Right.
Yeah. So the proposed completion date is in November of this year. That's if they are able to start the project in July.
So basically, you're talking 3 months construction period.
Correct.
Thanks. That's what I was looking for. Based on that, I think I would agree with Councillor Toth as well, considering that the cost of lumber is extraordinarily high right now. I would move to defer this until we see hopefully see some pricing come down, which I think it's going to do as well.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments, or would someone like to make a recommendation? Councillor Toth.
I'm willing to make a recommendation that we perhaps retender this project in October, November, which would still give an opportunity and still give timeline to hopefully have the thing completed and constructed in time for the summer events of next year.
Okay, so you're anticipating that prices, I'm just looking at the timeline as well, right? So if we're looking to have it up and operational, say for June of next year, and we need 3 months to build it, that's March, right? February, end of February-ish. So yes, October, November, somewhere in there, tender.
Yeah, because we also don't want to be trying to tender anything over a Christmas and New Year's break and stuff like that. So I'm in favor of this project going forward. I'm not in favor of increasing the budget to compete for lumber right now. So I would October be a suitable time to retender this job? Yeah, I guess is that suitable from a procurement timeline?
I would guess it would be.
Okay. Councillor McLean, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, do we want to get that on the table or?
Yes. Councillor Toth, are you making that recommendation?
I will move that we put this on hold and retender this project in late fall. I'll leave the specific timeline up to staff.
Okay, so I have two directors who've shown up. Director Douglas.
So I believe we need to reject the bid before we put this on hold. So the bid came in, it's over our allotted budget.
Yes.
If council wants to reject the bid and not continue at this point, that would be my one motion, and then to give instruction to retender in October.
Thank you. Director Dillon. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
Now you should be able to hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I'm not the procurement officer. Unfortunately, we don't have one right now with the district. But in other jurisdictions I've been a part of, there's some, there has been issues with what's called bid shopping. There has to be good grounds to reject a bid. My suggestion is just to have a procedural review to see what we can do before we make a decision on this. Another option could be to work with the contractor who has bid this project once and see if they're aware of these lumber pricings dropping, and say if they're willing to wait a little bit longer to have them drop and work with us to get this in, but under a budgetary constraints. That's the other option that council can pursue as well.
Councillor McLean.
So my issue is that we're trying to set a timeline on something we really don't know.
Yeah.
Lumber prices, it's more than just a COVID issue. There's some really fundamental issues with the lumber market right now. So yes, maybe it's starting to go down, maybe it won't. To say it will be down to a significant level by the end of the year, we're not economists, we can't say that. No one really can. If it's acceptable to staff, my preferred route would be to reject the tent proposal and just leave it up in the air for when we put it back out, because we really need these lumber prices to come down, and who knows how long it'll be.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm okay to go really either way. I actually like Director Dillon's idea. If the bidder is prepared to do that, they already took the time to put a bid in, I think I would be okay with that offer as well. Like, so just to see what everyone else has to say.
Okay, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, you know, $74,000, lumber prices aren't going to come down $74,000 on a $300,000 project. So, you know, I'm on side with Director Dillon. Might be good to go back to the folks and see if they can, you know, reconfigure what we're looking at building.
Thank you, Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in that what Director Dillon is suggesting sounds good to me. Go back and look at it. You know, ultimately, were we to reject this, I think we would have pretty reasonable grounds to reject a bid for coming in like 23% over budget. So could go either way, but I like the idea of sending it to a review, sort of having some feedback with West Coast Log Homes. Yeah, seeing if we can, if they have any indication, they're going to know a lot better than we are what the lumber market and the wood market's doing. So let's have a deeper conversation with them. And I don't know legislatively how long we can hold that process out with a single bidder, or when we have to basically call it off and start over. But we have staff that know those things, so happy to go either way.
All right, so I still need a recommendation to move something forward. Mr. Director Douglas.
Yes, so at this point, I also like Director Dillon's idea of going back to the proponent and talking about options. Their current bid does end in, you know, so many days. So that may make it fall apart as well. But we could certainly go back and say, okay, where do you see prices going? We see it coming down. You know, what kind of a difference would that make on this type of a building? And if it doesn't look like it would be achievable, then we would come back to council.
So in other words, you'd look for a recommendation to refer this back to staff to meet with the proponent and
Yes.
come back with a recommendation to council.
Yes.
Thank you. Someone like to make that recommendation? Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Toth. Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Toth.
It's not pertinent to the vote. We can have the vote and
Okay.
then my comment.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Sorry to totally derail you there.
That's okay.
I'm wondering, you know, there's conversation or there's mention in here of like donated materials, things like that. Looking at the rendition of the building, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to perhaps source some timber through the community forest for a project like this.
Yes, and that is what the donation would have been.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on item 10.2? Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Moving on, item 10.3. This is development permit for 6317 Bly Road for Everbright Ventures. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Koberwitz.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have a presentation specifically prepared tonight. This is a fairly straightforward application and fairly minor, but essentially it's a development permit for 2 development permit areas to permit a 8-lot subdivision to proceed on Bly Road. This was previously considered by council through rezoning last year. And due to some steep sloped areas on one corner of the property, a development permit development permit for steep slopes is required. And in subdivisions where 3 or more lots are being created, that has not been delegated to staff. So that's why you're seeing that tonight. And also some of the lots are less than 600 square meters in size. and therefore they're designated as a more intensive residential small lot development, and development permit area 8 applies. Although not the entire host of guidelines are relevant in this case, it still has to be considered for a development permit. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, generally looks good to me. Just that little rock outcropped in the corner. So my understanding of this is they can't blast it, but essentially they could just build on top of it because there's not enough room to get a house in kind of beside it.
Really, the development permit area would be intended that development not take place on that slope. It's mostly, and there's a condition in the development permit that it not be altered. There is a contingency in there as we would, there's some loose bouldering on that slope that the geotechnical engineer has indicated that should development occur on that lot, it may need to be pinned or cleared, to be made completely safe depending on where a home is sited. But we would ideally like to see no development on that slope.
Okay, let me rephrase my question then. Is lot 6 buildable where that little outcrop is?
Yes.
Okay, that's good enough for me then.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So there's a recommendation on page 62. Council approved development permit 2021-24 for the 8-lot subdivision proposed at 6317 Bly Road. Councillor Rowe. Okay, is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on, item 10.4, we'll say goodbye to Councillor Rowe for a few minutes. Thank you. Item 10.4, this is Vancouver Coastal Health use of Seaside Center. Look for a motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you, I think, contains all of the details you need. One thing, just a little bit of a preamble for it, is when we first started dealing with the pandemic last March, we shut down Municipal Hall, our public bathrooms, our community facilities, and we said our community, the safety of our community was our #1 priority, and that we would be dealing with the pandemic with an abundance of caution. And sometimes we might be accused of being too cautious, but the safety of our community was the most important thing. The respiratory assessment clinic continues to operate, and they continue to be very busy, because if you have symptoms, you still have to get tested, even if you've been vaccinated. And that's a provincial health decision. We don't get to second guess them and say, oh, but the variants don't seem that bad. It's a provincial health requirement. And so because of that, the clinic is still busy. If that requirement changes, they might not be busy. But right now, they believe that this is the best location for them, for as busy as they are. It's also a location that the community is already well aware of. It serves the entire Sunshine Coast, and it allows them to do testing right from people's cars because it's right outside the door. So they have asked if they could please stay, and they would like, they're anticipating possibly being there until the end of September, but at this point it's really just a best guess. So the recommendations before you are essentially to allow Vancouver Coastal Health to carry on in Seaside Center at the same rate and the same charges that they have been experiencing since the last time we talked about this.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally grateful for the work that the Respiratory Assessment Clinic is doing. On page, excuse me, on page 100 of the agenda, it's mentioned that, you know, it's really not known when the volume of testing will reduce, which is crystal balls would be lovely, but appreciate that they could remain at full bore right up until September 30th. Have they had any conversation, or have we had any conversation with them about what if they are looking to go past September 30th? Because we've extended this once, we're being asked to extend it again. Like I say, I'm okay with what they're doing. I'm just wondering, do they have, like, is September 30th the end for them in this facility?
Through your worship to Councillor Toth, no, at this point, September 30th is just a best guess. We could have a new variant that sends numbers up and that could go, a lot busier again. Having said that, they've recently made the decision to close the clinic on Saturdays and Sundays. So they are now just a Monday to Friday operation, which I think is a really exciting, positive step for us. So who knows, they could be out by the end of July, or they might not be out by September. I don't know.
Okay.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges with this, but at the end of the day, most important thing is public health response, and testing is a critical part of that. One of the challenges is, however, the interaction between the respiratory clinic and the visitor center, which both share that space. So given that it is closed on weekends, I'm wondering if just through internal conversations, we can try and just kind of collapse the visuals of the testing center, and just put away some of the science type stuff. So it can just be a little more welcoming to tourists. But then we can get them all back out come Monday.
Okay, another piece that will come into play here is our Seashell Arts Festival. So Seashell Arts Festival, if it operates this year, will be running in October. And I know last year they had booked this space and we took it away from them and gave it to Vancouver Coastal Health for the assessment clinic. And they were very gracious in working in a number of other facilities throughout the community. So if we could indicate a drop dead date on this, that Vancouver Coastal Health potentially would know that September 30th, that's the last they can have it. They could then plan for that, and our Arts Festival could also plan for their festival in October. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I wouldn't advocate for that approach. We don't know how the pandemic's going to unfold. And I think when I talked about multiple issues, one of them is community events, bringing people together. It's valuable. Our arts programs are valuable. But at this time, testing is more valuable. That needs to be our number one priority. So I wouldn't support a drop dead.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Toth.
I'm going to move the recommendations as presented. So that'd be recommendation 2, the Vancouver Coastal Health be permitted to continue to use Seaside Center as a respiratory assessment clinic or vaccination clinic until September 30th, 2021. Recommendation 3, that the rental fees for Seaside Center prescribed in fees and charges bylaw 575/2019 be waived for Vancouver Coastal Health. Recommendation 4, that staff invoice Vancouver Coastal Health for any additional expenses related to use of the building, such as but not limited to the phone lines. And recommendation 5, that staff invoice Vancouver Coastal Health for rental of Seaside Center in the amount of $1,000 per month. I think Councillor McLean made a really good point about not putting a drop dead date on this, because yeah, if things go bad and they need it past this, there's a good chance they're not having the festival. So
okay, so that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, we'll bring Councillor Rowe back. Okay, I think she can hear us. We can't see her. We'll move on to item 10.5. This is Journeying Together in Partnership, a final report for endorsement. I'd look for a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So since the group came to us week or two ago with regards to this project. Presentation has been made to the Seashell Nation, and I'm given to understand that the Seashell Nation will be sponsoring the walkway along the waterfront. The Rotary Sunshine Coast will be sponsoring the gazebo on the pier, and there is some work to be done around that. And the Downtown Business Association will be sponsoring the taking down the wall between the two, Seashell Nation and the District of Seashell. So the other project is the gathering place outside of Municipal Hall. This application of this report is requesting that the District of Seashell take on sponsoring the gathering place, and that if the grant is successful, that staff be directed to review it and bring a report back to council, and that council endorse the Journeying Together in Partnership final report as presented in this package, with the one minor amendment that Councillor Rowe found about calling our MLA and MP instead, and that council provide a letter of support to the Journeying Together in Partnership project sponsors. So the way this will be going forward is the report that is put together here, the final report, would be attached to each of the projects in the initiative, and they would all indicate that they are part of the bigger initiative. So, Councillor Toth, questions, comments?
Thank you. So in having read through the Journeying Together in Partnership final report, it does talk about this gathering place being sort of contingent upon developing a bit of a master site plan for Block 7.
Yes.
This grant is for the gathering place. So I'm wondering what the plan is for doing a master plan for this property. Whether that's something we've got to come up with funding for separately, or whether there's staff capacity to do this internally. Yeah, just was not clear within the report itself. It sounded like the master plan had to come first. And yeah, so just that question.
So on page 121, if you look at the capital cost, there is project management and coordination of $12,000, and then commissioning of a traffic study to address the parking, access, and egress issues, which would then feed into the overall site master plan. That's $40,000 to put that master plan together with all those components. So maybe the wording isn't quite as clear as it needs to be, because that 40,000 would then create the master plan.
Okay, so that was going to be my follow-up question, because it reads like that's going to be just the traffic study and what have you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I spoke to the mayor specifically about this, but just to put it on the public record, last time we talked about this, we talked about preferring Hackett Park. So I just want to hear why this is back to the Town Hall Block 7 area.
Yes, a couple of reasons. We reached out to our Parks Department, and we have the money pretty much for a grant for the stage at Hackett Park. This grant does not allow for stacking. Also, it starts as of April of this year, so anything spent prior to that cannot be included. We also have money at Hackett Park for the washroom, the playground equipment, and we've put budget money aside for the tennis courts. So there's not a lot left to do there, if anything. So given that that is pretty much taken care of with regards to grants, et cetera, already, this is a space that the library has indicated they need work done on, the RCMP as well. We also need to look at parking. So this would actually, starting with the master plan, would actually make this space that has been put together, but bits and pieces as buildings kind of came along, would actually allow us to do that master plan and do the preliminary work around the road works, et cetera, that need to happen to consolidate the space. Would this give us everything that we need? Probably not. There would still be other things to do down the road, but I think this would give us the foundation to be able to create the space that we would need. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I'd spoken previously about the renovating, tearing up, whatever, of the Spirit Square, and whether there was going to be implications with the province or the federal government over that. And I do recognize that the Spirit Squares were a project that was done by the government in the late 2000s to sort of celebrate 150 years of Canada. So it is ironic and, not lost on me, the idea of actually ripping out the Spirit Square to, facilitate something that is more in tune with reconciliation. But I just want to make sure that we cleared this sort of a project with our senior governments to make sure that they're not going to come back and go, well, you only had it there for 12 years and you ripped it out. We'd like our $500,000 back, please.
Staff did look at the documentation around Spirit Square and couldn't find anything in the time that they looked that indicated that that would be any kind of an issue. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, has there been any conversation with the Seashell Farmers Market and potentially moving to this location? Would it be preferred over their current location? I know we have some traffic access issues with their current location.
Yes, we have had conversations with them. They've been preliminary conversations because they would need to ensure, first of all, the space is there, but they need to ensure that, they also had things like electrical outlets that they needed. They have access to water, etc. And those sorts of things haven't been discussed with them yet. They will be providing a letter of support for moving this forward in the stage it is at this point. And yes, having the farmers market on Cowrie, it is a bit of an issue now, and I could see where in the next few years it could become more of an issue. As construction and development happens up around Trellis, with the Transit Future Plan coming forward this fall, when they're looking at doing that work, at some point we will potentially see that buses will be going both directions, and having the road there blocked off on Saturday will be an issue. So wouldn't be next year, farmers market would move, but at some point they recognize that their time, they recognize that their time in that space is limited. Any other questions or comments? All right, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to move the recommendations on page 102. Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded. All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to reports from councillors. Well, since Councillor McLean is going fancy on us tonight, we'll go to him last. So we'll start with Councillor Kuster, Toth, Lamb, Rowe, and then McLean. So Councillor Kuster.
I actually have nothing to report this week.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
I wasn't ready to go second, especially with such a short precursor. Okay, so let's see. I attended a public information meeting that was put on by the community forest, all by Zoom. There were some really good questions raised from the community and some good answers from the board and from Warren. I appreciated that session. I haven't gone back to check if it was recorded or not, but I don't think it would have been. Let's see, I attended the part of the Scredo meeting at the start of this week, just as an observer. Tom will speak more to Scredo, hopefully, but I did appreciate the amount of conversation that their board was having around their various agenda items, so that's good. It's one of those things, we know they're there, we know high level what they do. We don't really hear from them very often, so it was really nice to check in and see what they're up to. They got a couple initiatives that they're working on. So, and then over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, lots of SCRD strategic planning review work. We had a number of department presentations from each of the departments and what have you. So it was really good workshop environment, really we've told staff previously to stop bubble wrapping us and to just give us the facts. And I think it was really nice to have that sort of safe space where they knew they could give us the facts without worrying about public perceptions or, you know, motions being made or anything like that. So it was really good work and a good process. But that's really all I have to report this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I attended the chamber meeting, and one of the things they asked about was, you know, they were wondering if there was projects moving ahead on Cowrie Street or Torito Street, and wondering, you know, if there was incentives that council could provide to them to move their projects forward. Yeah. And then I attended the Scredo meeting with Councillor Toth the other day, and one of their big things that has come forward, they had commissioned a study for employment land. So it's land that was available for business opportunities or whatever. So it shows the lands that are available for lease or purchase. And it also gives people one place to go for information for industrial and ALR lands that may be available. So it's whether there's buildings on them or not buildings on. So and then they want to develop an agricultural plan that supports farmers and the agricultural tourism. And the biggest problem that comes out of that is, you know, how do they get that out to the local public or to anybody from Vancouver? You know, how they're trying to figure out how, you know, is it through a website? Is it through, you know, advertising in the paper or whatever? Yeah. And then a little bit of real quick discussion was about the chambers, about the three chambers amalgamating here on the coast. And so my understanding is that is still a discussion. So they're still open for that. And I was going to attend the WOISAC, the Water Advisory Committee, on June the 7th, but my computer was in the hospital. And it's back in there now. So anyways, that's my report. My computer's in the hospital.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I'm not holding up Matt's presentation one more second. I don't know.
All right. Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Oh man, I think all I wanted was a couple slides. But before I get to that, I attended the Davis Bay Wilson Creek Summer Park Community Association. They presented Sarah Singerman with the Citizen of the Year award. So Sarah really stepped up a couple of years ago for the association. She wanted to become a member, and she asked, why isn't the application form online? So the value of a good question. She now brought the application form online. She built them a website. She got them a mailing list going. She got them a Facebook page going. So she really earned the Citizen of the Year with all this digital work for the association. So I don't think it needs to come from council, but maybe if the mayor on her letterhead could just send a letter of congratulations. I think she's really earned it in supporting the association.
Thank you. We'll make that happen.
Cool, thank you. Attended a couple of BC Ferries meetings. It looks like traffic is returning to normal. Route 3 has been rebounding faster than the other major routes. They are thinking that traffic levels could exceed previous years. And apparently they'll be able to respond with additional capacity beyond what they did in 2019. So it's to be seen how much they can respond and if it can really meet that demand, but they're ready for a busy summer. There's also some concerns with September capacity coming from tourism. We're showing that room bookings are already really strong in September. So if we go back to our shoulder season service, ferries may not be able to keep up. In terms of fallback or implications after the pilot. Reservations are now back to 45%. They're not going to be changing anytime soon. So that's essentially what we did before. However, progress has been made. You can now make reservations with a Visa debit. So that's a special type of debit card. You don't need to have any debt incurred there. And they're also going to provide travel tips for busy weekends. So we talked a little bit of a heat map, kind of showing red is the sailings you don't want to take, green is the good ones. So they're going to try and get something like that going sometime this summer. And we're also working on a online forum for BC Ferries to discuss with the FAC in a bit more streamlined way rather than email. So just kind of keep some of our records online. So it'll be a private page, but we're also trying to push them to create a route-specific public page. And then my presentation.
Yeah, before you go there, I think Councillor Toth has a question.
Oh, sure.
Super quick. It's not even a question. It's just, I'm really glad to hear that BC Ferries is going to be doing that heat map idea. I know that a couple of years ago, you were doing that, basically, Councillor McLean, and having seen what you had to do to make that happen, I'm really glad they're going to be producing that in-house rather than relying on people bodging together a solution for them. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll see how detailed it is. Their big concern is that by giving that information, it'll change demand and then it'll be less accurate. But I think that's a good problem to have. So my final point is I attended a session on visual quality objectives. So you'll note that we have a letter, correspondence on this later in the agenda. So what I wanted to do, it was a very informative meeting and very poorly attended. So I wanted to try and just break down what they're looking for, what they're trying to do, so we can provide some good feedback to them. So what we are looking at here is essentially the Seashell area. You'll see here that most of it's in this kind of darkish green kind of color. Sorry, let me just pull up my notes. Okay, sorry. Okay, so visual quality objectives. What this does is it evaluates what the forest looks like from scenic viewpoints. On the Sunshine Coast, that essentially is any point on the water. So you'll see on the map here, anything in white is pretty inaccessible, so it's not considered under this metric. It's one of 11 values that are managed by professional foresters. So this whole process has given me respect for foresters. They have to consider 11 different things when thinking about where to log. And just the visual quality alone is determined on 35 factors. So it's all a very scientific process, which I found super interesting. So this is what's happening now. They're going to be moving to a new framework for forestry management over the next couple of years, and the Sunshine Coast is part of a pilot project. So that's a forest landscape plan, and we'll be hearing more about that in the next few months. But for now, just on the visual objectives. So this kind of green color is partial retention. It's essentially the third stage of the 5 stages of visual quality. So what this means is that alteration's easy to see, but it's small to medium in scale. So it looks kind of natural, and it's not geometric in shape, so not rectangular, no straight lines or anything like that. When you're looking at a landscape, it's about 1.6 to 7% of the ground may look logged. So the highest level is retention, or the second highest is retention. That's about 1.5% visible, and the very highest is preservation. There's very little preservation on the Sunshine Coast, but one area that is Princess Louisa Inlet. So I think that's really valuable. So if I go to my second slide, this is Seashell. I took this just yesterday. We see several things within this landscape. I have circled them here. In green is some active logging. So this is kind of what the retention is. It's very odd shaped, so it's not very visible. In the yellow, you can kind of see previous logging that is greened up. So the qualification is that once one place is greened up, they can move on to another. There's also On the far right is some logging on the Lehigh site. This is private land, so it is not managed under this process. So it's very straight lines. They can just clear cut it all and they don't need to manage the visual quality. Same thing that happened with the private managed forest in Sandy Hook. So that is not included. And in the orange over here is an old mine site. So also not included because it's not logging activity. So my final point is just looking to what kind of feedback we want to provide to these guys on what we'd like to maintain. And I think one of the most outstanding views that Seashell has is this one right here. This is taken at the end of the government dock. And I think one of the most important parts is Mount Richardson, right at the top there. So Mount Richardson is mostly a provincial park. Not much of that is going to be logged. However, that part there is not a provincial park. So I would like to see a higher level standard for that one little area there. You can kind of see the power line cutting through it. And then just that one little corner. If we go to the map, it's a spot 1257, right beside Mount Richardson Park. This is owned by the community forest, but it is something I'd like to see Seashell just elevate to that partial retention status, the light green that you see elsewhere. And that is my presentation.
So if you're saying that that's part of the community forest, then that would be subject to the new operations plan that they've put in, where they're considering selective logging rather than clear cutting, which could potentially meet the criteria you're looking at?
Yes, absolutely. So selective logging, it has less of a visual impact. But what this is a larger framework for all logging. So if this tenure did switch over to anyone else, we could still achieve those objectives.
All right. Any questions or comments for Councillor McLean?
I found this presentation great. I really wanted to share it with you guys because it was super cool.
All right. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. More technical question. Was that presentation recorded by any chance? Because now you got me really curious and wanting to go back and review it.
Unfortunately not. I got more extensive notes and they do have some links in the information they sent us in the correspondence. But it's and they were doing 3 sessions and unfortunately all 3 have passed now.
All right, I'll give my report and then we'll go over to Councillor Toth. I attended the ICE-T meeting that was on Friday the 4th. They announced another grant opportunity called Thrive. It's up to $50,000, perfect for some of the projects that the Downtown Business Association is looking to do with murals on some of the buildings. So they will be applying to that. Deadline, I think, is in the next couple of weeks. I attended the Air Cadets annual ceremonial review. It was all online. They've done their whole year online, but some of the members attained badges. I have to give kudos to the adult volunteers who actually designed the program for the students or for the members. One of the things that they indicated they did occasionally was scavenger hunts. So each member was in their own house, but they were given things that they had to run around and find in their own houses and bring back to see who could win the scavenger hunt the quickest. So it sounded like they had a lot of fun. You had a lot of creativity, but a lot of fun. So kudos to what they've done. Sunshine Coast Community Forest has had their inaugural meeting, and they have elected Kathleen Sudis as the chair and David King as the vice chair. They've also set up all of their committees, and that information will be coming forward at their next meeting. What else have we got? Like Councillor Toth mentioned, lots of SCRD meetings around strategic planning, etc. We are still doing the weekly meetings with Vancouver Coastal Health, so I'm looking forward to the update this Friday. One of the things that's been mentioned a couple of times is that on the Sunshine Coast, 21% of the residents 12 and up, not including the Seashell Nation, so non-Indigenous, 21% have not yet registered for a vaccine. So Vancouver Coastal Health is doing a push to get word out to those who thought, well, you know, I want to see how my friends and neighbors deal with this and how they react to it. So just get the word out, let people know, go ahead and get registered. Let's get these vaccinations done on the Sunshine Coast. And there are all kinds of other meetings around this reconciliation initiative, but we've talked about those. Councillor Toth, over to you for SCRD.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I did not get it finished in time to get into the agenda package, but I did forward it to everybody last night, and I know that staff have posted it up on the website. So happy to take any questions from council if there are any questions on it. There were, despite it only being, 2 meetings to report on, it was rather lengthy conversation in both meetings, as evidenced by the notes in my report. But part of why it took me a while to write it. I suppose the biggest thing in the SCRD report is, of course, the sprinkler replacement at the Seashell Aquatic Center. I've mentioned it before, internal corrosion. There's been piping damage, near failure on this facility, on the sprinkler system. And staff brought forward a proposal. Staff put out a tender to replace the sprinkler system. And unfortunately, we only received a single bidder for the project. And after much discussion and deliberation, the board chose to go with option 2, which was to phase the project over 3 years. And I do want to acknowledge that it was not an easy decision, and in fact it was a split vote. It only just barely passed. Mayor Seegers and I were actually on opposite sides of that situation, that vote. So hoping, of course, that the material pricing will come down much the same way we looked at the band shell earlier this evening. So coming up, I just wanted to highlight that at the Planning and Community Development Committee tomorrow morning at 9:30, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan is being brought forward. So that was some important work, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for interface work, fire smarting, possible staff work around development permit areas, things like that are going to sort of come forward as time goes on with this report coming forward. Yeah, happy to take any questions otherwise.
Council, any questions for Councillor Toth? All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on to council correspondence. First, a motion to receive the council correspondence. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So, item number 1, anything with regards to that? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so this was the topic of my presentation. I gather I threw a bunch of information at you, so I don't know if we're ready to support my motion. I don't think we're in too big of a rush. We can hold off on that, but I would like to see that change and kind of upgrade the visual quality of that area right beside Mount Richardson Park.
Could you perhaps come back with a recommendation to, like, send out some of that information to council and then come back with a recommendation to the next meeting?
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Then item number 2, this is with regards to UBCM minister meetings. So these meetings are going to be happening September 7th through 13th. Again, this year we're going to be going as Team Sunshine Coast. So the regional district has put together a list of minister meetings and circulated that to you. I believe that last night the town of Gibsons was looking at that list and adding additional meetings that they would like to see. And then I've received some meeting requests today already as well. So what we have, does everybody have the meetings that have already been requested that we could just forward on to staff? If not, we can circulate those again. There are a couple of others that I didn't send mine in yet. On page 8, this is with regards to Ministry of Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing. So one of the projects that we're looking at is with regards to some land up by Kinnickinnick School, potentially for affordable family rentals. I'd like to follow up with BC Housing to find out where they are with that and what kind of support they'd like from us and which ministry to follow that up to see if we can facilitate that moving along. Then I know Councillor McLean talked about the Landlord Tenancy Act. That is on page 150 as well, under Residential Tenancy Branch. Then moving forward. One of them that we've brought up at the regional district that I'd like to bring attention to is on page 18. Under Ministry of Finance, there's cannabis revenue sharing. So when the federal government was looking at legalizing cannabis, one of the carrots they held out was that the revenue would be shared with the province and then also be shared with municipalities. We haven't seen anything. I recently saw a news article and they were talking with Minister Farnworth, and month of December 2019, the province took in $43 million in revenue from cannabis in that 1 month. So one of the questions and the things I'd like to see is, could we get some of that funding coming to us, given that we're the ones on the ground with bylaw, et cetera, and dealing with those kinds of things. And as we're hearing, we need more support in the community. So I'd like to see that one come forward. Councillor McLean also put forward transportation infrastructure, Peak Route 3 ferry service, and land use planning and highway bypass. We understand that is already starting with the Ministry of Transport with regards to the foundation agreement, because that's part of the foundation agreement. Mental health and addictions, detox and aftercare facilities, that's on the SCRD list as well. Health, issue of accessible healthcare and the ferry. Yes, the whole TAP and different forms, etc. Finance, talk about speculation or vacancy tax. There's pros and cons for that, and that's something that I think we as council probably need to talk about. And you talked about cannabis as well for public safety, Solicitor General. Let me just see if I have any others highlighted that aren't on our list yet.
So just a process question.
Yes.
You're just rattling off a list.
Yes. Yes.
We have some of this in email. I'm just wondering, can we get any of this in writing?
Yes.
And have a solid motion, or what's our decision process here?
What will happen is the 3 governments will get together and put the complete list together, and then there will be a determination as to who will be the lead and the second on each of these items, and we will together then approach the government. So we won't all, for example, maybe go to Flynnward. We won't all ask for a meeting for that. It will be one of the governments, unless there's something specific for our government that doesn't impact any of the other governments. So we're going to go joint, but so there are some overlaps between regional district, us, and Town of Gibson's. So at this point, all we're doing is putting the list together, and then this will come back once that list has been solidified, and it'll be determined who will be the one actually applying and moving things forward. So these lists, your list and the list from the regional district, has already gone to staff, and we're just adding a few others. One other one that would be interesting to get some feedback on would be Public Libraries Branch, because they've now moved out of education and are now with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So I haven't talked to the librarian about that, but that may be something to follow up to see if there's something we need to do there. And another one that came forward from staff, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And I don't know which department, but there is land that that MOT has in downtown Seashell, across from the police station, the RCMP station, and the Justice Services Building. They have some land there that a few years back we were told they just declared surplus. If that is something that we could get access to, it could be something we could use for parking. So staff would like us to follow up on that one. That's all we have. So, Councillor McLean, to your question, these will all go to our staff, SCRD staff, Town of Gibson's, along with the ones from the Town of Gibson's. And then we will put together the complete list to come back to each of the councils. Right, anything on any of the other emails? Or sorry, the correspondence. Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I'd just like to bring up the chamber one.
Yes.
Item 5.
Okay. Is there anything particularly you'd like to say about it, or just?
I'm trying to bring it up.
Okay. Okay.
I just physically. Okay, now I got it in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting ideas in here. That's for sure. So I appreciate the chamber bringing these forward. The one that I tried to follow through on with the minister meeting was the lobby for changes to the Residential Tenancy Act.
Yes.
I think we can do a little bit of work there around damage deposits, because that's a common concern I'm hearing, is that landlords are worried about their property being damaged. So how can we change some of the restriction there, and maybe incentivize some of them more to rent it out?
I was wondering if we could refer this letter to the housing table that we've just set up, because this would be something that they could look at, identifying whether or not there are opportunities for any of these in the community. Part of what I see in some of these are outside our purview, right? Utilize unused buildings. They're not our buildings. And summer camps are going to be used this summer. Laneway housing is going to be dealt with in our zoning bylaw. Purchase, lease, movable camps. The only land that we have is not suitable for this, or is going to be used for something else. So it is something that could happen, but not necessarily on District of Seashell land. So I'm wondering if we referred this to the housing planning table, if they could go through these and see if there's something that they could suggest, and potentially work with the Seashell Chamber to move some of them forward. Any comments on that? Councillor Toth.
Yeah, I think referring this out to everybody who might have interest in any part of this is a great idea, including maybe forward this on to the Seashell Nation as well, because they were referenced in here as well. You know, they do have some land that they don't necessarily have immediate plans to develop. There may be an opportunity there to look at the movable camps, or, you know, a temporary setup of some form. The problem with any temporary setup, of course, is that what happens when that time runs out? You know, if we haven't solved the problem by the time runs out, all you've done is given people false hope. Yeah, there's certainly some good suggestions in here. I look at this, and you know, you mentioned that we don't really have any land that's suitable for, say, a movable camp, and I think of course the largest piece of land we have is the operations center property, and no, we can't put 400 units of housing on there, but is there an opportunity within a portion of that parcel for us to do something, you know, even 4 or 6 units? something like that. I know part of the property is leased out. You know, is our leasee using the full piece of land that they have? You know, things like that. Yeah, it's interesting options, interesting ideas. You know, when I saw this, I just did a quick Google search, and there are vessels, there are camp ships that are available for purchase online and not that expensive here within Canada. So the question is, you know, who takes the lead on something like that? Because if a private if a private owner wanted to, say, buy a camp vessel and move it here to rent out, they could just do it and wait for, you know, bylaw and the Coast Guard and what have you to come down on them. But, you know, to try and get approval for something like that in the first place, I don't know what kind of red tape you'd get caught up in trying to approve something like that, even just for a temporary use. So yeah, some really interesting conversation here, and like you say, not entirely and mostly outside of our jurisdiction.
So would council be in favor of referring this to the Seashell Nation, the other governments, and the Housing Action Table? Councillor Toth?
I would be in favor of that. So if you're making that as a motion, I'll second it.
I'll make that as a motion. All right. All those in favor? Thank you. Any other correspondence?
There is one other thing that comes to mind with this chamber letter, in that one thing that the town of Gibsons has looked at is disposing of road ends, you know, road allowance ends that they're never going to develop a road through. And it's something that, you know, they make the land available for $1 lease to the Affordable Housing Society, or, you know, whoever's building the projects, and it's a win-win for everybody, and the land is still technically available should the municipality require it someday in the future. A quick look around on GIS indicates that there may be options and maybe opportunities for us to do something similar here in Seashell with some road end spaces. And I know that our staff are extremely busy, but I'm just wondering if it's something that we would be able to put on somebody's plate to have a look at, if there are any options for us to look at road end closures and development.
I'm going to go to Andrew Yates at this point. Mr. Yates.
Yeah, it's certainly something, as time allows, we can take a look at through the mapping.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, just to speak to the other side of that, the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society obviously just finished one of these projects at Franklin Road. They built 2 units. They are interested in doing further projects such as that. They are working with the town of Gibsons on several potential locations. And although I haven't discussed it with them, I'm sure they'd be open to considering locations in Seashell, and the timing is right on this because they have just finished Franklin Road. So they're kind of thinking what's next.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I'm wondering if this is something we can actually put on them, on the affordable housing societies themselves. Like, if it's something that we have, you know, high level interest in pursuing, our GIS systems are open and accessible to anybody in the municipality. Anybody in the world can log in and view the mapping data. So I wonder if we could invite them to put forward a list of 5 or 6 potential sites, and then that's something that we can refer to our planning staff to have a look at without trying to carve some time to go through the system ourselves.
Councillor McLean, do you think they'd have staff and or expertise to be able to do some of that?
Deferring to a not-for-profit is always challenging because they have just as many staff concerns as we do. It's fortunate that they do now have a part-time staff, so they do have some capacity, but I can't speak of if they have the skills because in Gibson's handed them that lot, so it's not something they've done before.
Okay, so maybe we'll leave it with our staff to do when they find the time. All right, I'm just going to mention the letter from the Sunshine Coast Regional District that was in support of our letter to the to Minister Fleming from Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure about ferries. And we have received a letter back that will be showing up on one of our later agendas. Anything else about correspondence? Any emergency items?
No, Your Worship.
That's good. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor?